Good afternoon and welcome to this series on the power of the cross. Each Sunday afternoon through this series we'll be looking at what the cross means to the Christian faith. So whether you call yourself Christian or not, we'll be looking afresh again at the amazing power of what Christ accomplished at the cross and why it's so central to the Christian faith.
Hello. As Owen has just reminded us, the cross of Christ is central to the Christian faith. And that's why we're looking at it in this short series of talks leading up to Easter, entitled The Power of the Cross. The Bible uses several different word pictures to help us to understand what it means and why it's so important. We need all these pictures, and so far we've thought about the cross as releasing us from prison, and as the great healing. This week, we step into the world of the law court. Unhappily, it is we who are in the dock, facing God as our judge. Yet, as we think about the cross as a court of law, we shall see that Jesus has taken our place and borne the judgment we deserve. In the first 3 chapters of his letter to Christians in Rome, the Apostle Paul argues that we are all lawbreakers. Whether we realize it or not, we all rebel against God and fail to obey his commands. What is worse, Paul says that we cannot live up to God's standard by our own efforts. We are guilty in God's eyes and deserve his condemnation. Yet there is hope for us if we put our trust in Jesus, as Paul explains in Romans chapter 3, starting at verse 21. But now a righteousness from God, apart from law, has been made known, to which the law and the prophets testify. This righteousness from God comes through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. By the word righteousness, Paul means to be put right with God, to be cleared of the charges against us. When he says apart from law, he means apart from our keeping God's law. And when he says the law and the prophets, he means what we call the Old Testament, the first part of the Bible. So he is saying here that the Old Testament testifies, that is, it acts as a witness, that God puts people right with himself and clears them of the charges against them, even though they do not keep his law. How can this be? Well, it comes through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe in him. Paul unpacks this in what he writes next. There is no difference, that is between Jew and Gentile, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. God presented him as a sacrifice of atonement through faith in his blood. So we're all in the same boat, Paul says, because we have all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We don't live up to the standard he has set for us. We are all guilty as charged. But Paul goes on to say something astonishing about those who trust in Jesus. First, he says they are justified, which means they are declared righteous, acquitted of all charges. Moreover, they do nothing to deserve this. But God justifies them freely by his grace. This means that it costs them nothing, but it costs him a great deal, since it is through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. Redemption is paying a price to buy back something which previously belonged to you. In the Roman world of Paul's day, it particularly meant the price paid by or for a slave to gain his or her freedom. We might call it a ransom. The price paid to redeem or ransom sinners was the death of Jesus. In the Old Testament, we read that God provided a system of sacrifices for the people of Israel, in which animals were killed so that the people's sins could be forgiven. The innocent animals were treated as substitutes for guilty people. They were a perpetual reminder that the penalty for sin is death, yet also that God is merciful towards the people he loves. But no animal can be an adequate substitute for a human being. Their shed blood symbolized what was needed, but could not truly achieve it. Only the one perfectly innocent man, Jesus Christ, could give his life to redeem others. His death was the real sacrifice of atonement, and it is effective for all those who have faith in him, as Paul explains further. He, that is God, did this to demonstrate his justice, because in his forbearance, that is his patience, he had left the sins committed beforehand unpunished. He did it to demonstrate his justice at the present time, so as to be just, and the one who justifies those who have faith in Jesus. Paul here emphasizes that God is a just judge. He cannot simply overlook sins. Justice must be done and be seen to be done. Yet God is also patient and merciful, desiring to save guilty people from the punishment they deserve. As I've explained, the Old Testament sacrifices did not really atone for people's sins. So for the time they remained unpunished, although the people were forgiven. That was until Jesus came, and in his own words, gave his life as a ransom for many. He willingly bore the punishment which others deserved, whether they lived before him or were yet to be born, and whether they were Jews or Gentiles. Now at this point we need to remember that Jesus is the man who is also God. It may be hard to understand, but the New Testament teaches clearly that this is so. Paul has just said that God presented him as a sacrifice of atonement. Elsewhere, he says that Christ gave himself for us. Both statements are true. The man who died on the cross in our place is also the God who is our judge. This is how his justice is satisfied and demonstrated for all the world to see. He bears the punishment himself as the willing substitute for the people he loves and longs to save. That is why he is just, to acquit those who have faith in Jesus from all charges. That is, to justify them. Everything that they owe has been charged to his account and fully paid for. Well, I wonder, how do you respond to this? Perhaps it raises some questions which you'd like to discuss with someone. If so, why not get in touch with us at got.questions@holytrinityspital.org. You might like to register for our online Christianity Explored course, which will start after Easter. Please don't simply dismiss what you've heard as irrelevant to you. If you are not trusting in Jesus, then you will have to face God's judgment and punishment on your own account. That is not something to consider lightly.